You were formed in sacred silence. Hands of heaven shaped your frame, breathed alive by love.
Today, I want to talk about something many of us have felt, but few talk about openly about it. And this topic is depression. You may have asked yourself, why do I feel like this? Why can't I just snap out of it? Or even, is something wrong with me when I feel like this? If you recognize yourself in this, I want you to know you are not weak. You are not broken beyond repair. And you are definitely not alone. And you don't have to shame to feel like that. Welcome to Dignity Talks. I'm Ritva Huusko, a psychotherapist from Finland and passionate about exploring healing and wholeness through both psychology and biblical wisdom. Here we talk about faith, emotional growth, and the dignity of being human. If you're seeking insight, hope, or just a quiet space for your soul, you're in the right place. Subscribe and join us on this meaningful journey. Subscribing doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't bind you anything. You're just getting notices when new videos are published. But why do we feel depressed? Depression is not a simple feeling. It's not just sadness. It's a deep heaviness, a fog that can settle over your thoughts, your energy, your desire to live or even get out of bed. And it has many roots. There are usually many roots, not only one. And those are biological causes. Sometimes depression starts in the body. Your brains are wired with chemicals like serotonin and dopamine, which regulate mood. When those are out of balance because of genetics, trauma, hormones, or chronic stress, depression can appear like a storm or sneak in without warning. It doesn't mean you're making it up. It means your body is calling out for help. But what happens when our hormones are out of balance? Hormones are like the body's messengers. They affect almost everything. Our energy levels, sleep, mood, appetite, focus, and emotional regulation. When key hormones fall out of balance, our mental and emotional state can shift dramatically. Some of the most important mood-related hormones include serotonin, which stabilizes mood, promotes calm and well-being. And then there is dopamine, and it's involved in motivation, pleasure, and reward. And then there is cortisol, the stress hormone. Too much causes anxiety, fatigue, and mood swings. And then there is estrogen and proestrogen, fluctuate in women and influence mood, especially during PMS, perimenopause, and menopause. And then there are thyroid hormones, which regulate energy and metabolism. Imbalances can mimic depression. And then there is testosterone. Low levels can cause fatigue, irritability, and low mood in both men and women. But how does this hormonal imbalance happen? There are many reasons why hormone levels can become disrupted, including chronic stress. Prolonged stress keeps cortisol levels high and disrupts the delicate balance of other hormones like serotonin and estrogen. And this can lead to burnout, anxiety, or depression. And poor sleep or irregular sleep cycles can cause also harm, because sleep is when your body restores hormonal balance. Disrupted sleep weakens the production of serotonin, melatonin, and other critical hormones. And then there is diet and blood sugar imbalances, high sugar intake, skipping meals, or nutrition deficiencies like magnesium, vitamin D, or vitamin B can throw off hormone function. And then there is trauma or long-term emotional strain. Psychological trauma impacts both the brain and endocrine system. It can dysregulate cortisol, adrenaline, and other hormones for years. Life stages and medical conditions then. Puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause all involve major hormonal shifts normally. Conditions like PCOS, hypothyroidism, or adrenal fatigue can also drive mood instability. So how can we support healing and restore hormonal balance then? Healing is absolutely possible, and it starts with a holistic approach. At first, nutrition. Eat a balanced diet rich in protein, healthy fats, and fiber. Avoid blood sugar crashes. Eat regularly and reduce processed sugars. Supplements, if needed, are especially vitamin D, magnesium, and omega-3. Then sleep is important. Aim for from 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep, not less. If you can, sleep in a dark, quiet room and stick to a consistent routine. Even short-term sleep restoration helps regulate cortisol and serotonin. And it's important also manage stress. Deep breathing, prayer, journalizing, nature walks, or gentle exercise can all calm your nervous system. Cortisol drops when we feel safe and present in our bodies. Sometimes we also need medical and therapeutic support. So get blood tests to check your hormone levels, thyroid function, and nutrition levels if needed. Talk to a doctor about antidepressants or hormone therapy if needed. These can stabilize mood while deeper healing begins. And work with a trauma-informed therapist if past emotional wounds are involved. So if it's possible for you to work with them. And then spiritual and emotional grounding. Hormonal imbalance may affect how you feel, but it doesn't change who you are. That's why stay rooted in God's love and grace. You are not a burden. You are being refined, not rejected. And be rooted in God's word. If your emotions feel out of control and you can't find the why, consider this. Your body may be trying to get your attention, not punish you. You are not lazy, faithless, or broken. You are a whole human being, body, mind, and soul. And when any part of you is out of sync, the others feel it. But healing is possible. One small step at a time, your body can return to balance. You are allowed to ask for help. You are allowed to rest, and you are allowed to heal. It says in Bible, I praise you, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made in Psalm 139, verse 14. Then, your emotional wants and unmet needs. Depression can be the voice of a heart that has been silenced, neglected, or deeply wounded. Maybe there is unresolved grief, abandonment, rejection, or constant pressure to perform, and they can lead to a sense of hopelessness and emotional shutdown. It's like your soul is saying, "This is too much to me. I can't carry it anymore." And that is when depression doesn't begin in your body, but in your heart. Not because we are weak or dramatic, but because something deep within us has been wounded, ignored, or denied for too long. Depression can be the voice of a heart that has been silenced, a soul that whispers, "I can't do this anymore." But how do these emotional wounds happen? They often come from moments of or seasons when we were emotionally hurt, neglected, or pressured, and never fully healed. Some common sources are childhood rejection from parents, peers, or caregivers, loss or grief that was never processed, or abandonment physically, emotionally, or spiritually, or constant criticism or unrealistic expectations, being taught that our emotions didn't matter, like stop crying, don't be so sensitive. And then there is trauma, including abuse, bullying, neglect, or betrayal. And then never being allowed to rest, be seen, or feel safe. And then over time, when these wounds go untreated, they can lead to a deep sense of hopelessness, numbness, or worthlessness, which is often labeled as depression. But what happens in the brain and soul then? When emotional wounds remain unhealed, the brain stays in fight, flight, freeze mode, draining your energy and joy. And you may disconnect from your own feelings to survive. This is called emotional shutdown. Maybe your inner voice turns self-critical. I'm not enough. I don't matter. Why even try? These are not flaws. These are adaptations to pain, but they don't have to define your future. So, how do we begin to heal emotional wounds then? At first, name the wound as you can, as you know today. Healing begins when we acknowledge what hurt us. By saying, that wasn't okay. I never got what I needed. I'm grieving something I never received. This is nothing about blaming anybody. It's about naming the truth. And the truth sets free. Then, second, seek safe support. Healing emotional wounds often requires a safe relationship. It can be therapist, or wise friend or mentor, or faith community that embraces grace, not judgment. You can't heal what you're still hiding from, but you don't have to face it alone. And thirdly, let yourself feel safe. Your emotions are not your enemies. They are the messengers. So allow space in your life for any feelings you have. It can be grief, anger, loneliness, fear. Those feelings don't make you less spiritual, because even Jesus wept. And then let God into the wound. God doesn't heal what we pretend isn't broken. But when we invite Him in, He comes gently. Never God comes forcefully. It says in Bible, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Psalm 147 verse 3. God sees your pain, even no one else did. He understands the ache of being misunderstood, unseen or betrayed. Jesus lived it, and He is safe with your pain. And then, fifth, replace shame with grace. One of the cruelest lies emotional wounds whispers are, you are too broken to be loved. But the truth is, you are deeply loved in the very places you feel most unworthy. Healing doesn't mean pretending the pain never happened. It means learning how to carry your story with compassion, not shame. If depression is your soul's way of saying, I can't carry this anymore, then healing begins by letting yourself be carried. By trusted people, by gentle truth, by the love of a God who sees you. It says in Bible, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11 verse 28. So you don't have to stay in silence. You are allowed to be honest, to hurt, to heal, and to hope again. Then one cause of depression can be mental habits and thought patterns. Over time, we may develop self-critical thinking. It can look like, I'm not enough. I always fail. Nothing will ever change. And these thoughts don't reflect depression. They feed it. But the good news is they can be unlearned with compassion, therapy, and support. And God can guide you out of these wrong thoughts. Not all depression begins with trauma or biology. Surely all these can affect each other, and usually they do, and sometimes it quietly builds through the daily patterns of how we think, how we have learned to think. We all carry an inner voice, and when that voice becomes overly harsh, hopeless, or fearful, it starts shaping how we see the world and ourselves. But what happens when thought patterns become burdens? Over time, repeated negative thoughts from mental roots or automatic loops in the brain, called cognitive distortions. These become default responses, even if they are not true. Some common examples include all or nothing thinking. If I mess up once, I'm a total failure. Or overgeneralizing. I always ruin everything. Or then catastrophizing. This is going to be a disaster. I'll never recover. Or mind reading. They probably think I'm annoying. Or personalizing. It's my fault. They are upset. And these thoughts can be subtle, but They drain our hope, increase anxiety, and deepen depression. They don't just reflect how we feel, they reinforce it. But how do these kind of thought patterns then develop? Negative thinking often develops as a response to early criticism or perfectionism, high expectations without emotional support, and then shame-based environments, especially in childhood or religion, repeating failures or rejection, constant compassion or fear of judgment. And over time, your brain starts assuming the worst to protect you. It's trying to say, if I expect failure, I won't be surprised or hurt. But in the long run, this protective voice becomes a prison. And then, how do we break free from destructive thought patterns? At first, you have to become aware of the inner critic. Start paying attention to your internal dialogue and ask yourself, would I speak to a friend this way? If not, why do I speak myself this way? Awareness is the first step toward healing. Second, challenge the thought with truth. Is this always true? What's the evidence for this belief? Is there another way to see this situation? This is part of cognitive restructuring, or a proven tool in therapy. Scripture does the same. Take every thought captive to make it obedient to Christ. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 5. And then practice new thought pathways. Our brains are neuroplastic. They can be retrained. Speak truth over yourself. I'm allowed to make mistakes and still be valuable. I may feel hopeless, but that doesn't mean I always will be. And then God is not done with me yet. This is not toxic positivity. It's spiritual and mental renewal. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12, verse 2. And then get support from outside voices. Sometimes we need help unlearning what we didn't choose to believe. It can be a therapist, a mentor, a grace-filled friend can help reframe the story you tell yourself. Healing happens faster in safe relationships. And then let grace replace your guilt. God doesn't speak with a shaming voice. He doesn't say, you always fail. He says, my grace is sufficient for you. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9. Replacing mental patterns starts when we stop agreeing with the lies and start receiving truth over and over until it sinks in. Because you are not defined by your thoughts. You are not your worst moments or your loudest fears. Mental habits can change, and with compassion, intention, and God's help, they will. You don't have to stay stuck in the same painful loops. One new thought at a time, and your mind can heal, and your life can follow. Whatever is true, whatever is noble, Think about such things, and the God of peace will be with you. Philippians 4, verses 8 and 9. Then there is spiritual and existential pain. Sometimes we feel depressed because we've lost our sense of purpose or feel spiritually disconnected. We might be asking, why am I here? Does my life matter? Where is God in all this I'm living through? These aren't signs of failure. They are signs you are longing for meaning. And that is deeply human. Not all depression is biological. Not all of it is rooted in trauma or distorted thoughts. Sometimes it's the cry of the soul, a pain that words can't quite touch, a quiet ache of not knowing why you're here, or what your life is really for. And this is called existential pain or spiritual depression. And it's more common than we think. So, what is existential or spiritual pain? It's the sorrow that rises when we start asking, what's the point of all this? Does my life have value? Where is God when I feel so lost? This pain isn't a failure of faith. It's actually a sign of your depth, your desire for truth, for beauty, for meaning that goes beyond the surface. But how does it happen? Spiritual and existential pain often surfaces in key life moments, such as after a major loss or disappointment. When success doesn't bring fulfillment, and during a season of transition, like aging, empty nesting, or job change, or in moments of spiritual dryness when prayer and worship feels numb. So let's look after religious trauma or disillusionment, when the God you were taught about doesn't seem to match your experience of God, or simply in the quiet places where your heart asks, is there more than this? So how does it feel like? It can feel like sense of emptiness or disconnection, feeling like life is meaningless, even when things look fine. There can be doubts about God, yourself, or your place in the world. You can feel unseen by others and by God. And there can also be emotional fatigue from constantly striving but never feeling fulfilled. And this is not just a bad mood. This is your soul calling out for something real, something eternal, something that matters. And having relationship with God, which you can live fully. So how do we begin to heal spiritual and existential pain? At first, be honest with God. Even in the doubt of God, God is not afraid of your questions. My God, why have you forsaken me? Psalm 22, verse 1. That's not a failure of faith. It's a raw, sacred honesty. Jesus himself spoke these kind of words. So let your soul speak without shame. Healing often begins when we drop the performance and get real with God, because then we get real with ourselves when we get real with God. And then talk to someone safe and wise. Sometimes spiritual pain becomes overwhelming because we face it alone and we hear only our own thoughts about it. So a wise mentor, counselor, or spiritual director can help you name what's happening and walk through it with grace. Not forcing, not performancing, but with grace. You are not the first to feel this way, and you don't have to figure it out by yourself, and you are not the last to think like that. And then reconnect with what gives meaning to you. Reflect on your deepest values, what stirs your heart. Return to scripture, not to perform, but listen what God has to say to you. Explore creative expressions like journaling, music or nature, dancing, whatever you feel. And serve someone else in love. Purpose often reawakens when we stop staring inward and extend grace outward. Whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Matthew 10, verse 39. Paradoxically, meaning often returns, not when we chase it, but when we give it away. But still rest in God who sees you. Sometimes we want answers, but what we really need is presence. It says in Bible, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. Where can I go from you, Spirit?" Psalm 139. Because even when we can't feel Him, God is still near. Even when we doubt, He remains faithful. He doesn't forsake us. He's faithful. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to stay open. Spiritual and existential pain doesn't mean you're lost forever. It means your soul is searching. That's not weakness. It's a longing for something more than shallow answers. And here's the good news. God meets us in the searching. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Matthew 5, verse 6. That means you will not hunger forever. The one who formed you, your soul, is still holding it, even when you don't understand the road ahead. He sees it, He knows it. Your life does have meaning, and you are not forgotten. And there is more ahead than you can see right now. So what does this tell us today? Depression isn't a sign that you're faithless, weak, or lazy. It's often a sign that something incredibly important inside you needs attention. Whether it's emotional healing, physical support, deep rest, or renewed hope, your depression is not the end of your story, because God's heart is for the depressed. If you've been told that depression means you lack faith, please hear this. Elijah was so overwhelmed. He asked God to take his life, and God gently gave him food, rest, and a whisper of His presence. David poured out his anguish in the Psalms, and God called him a man after his own heart. Jesus himself wept, grieved, and was overwhelmed with sorrow in the garden. Matthew 26, verse 38. So God does not shame the suffering. He draws near. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in the spirit. Psalm 34, verse 18. So, what can we do when we are depressed? At first, talk to someone, a friend, a counselor, a pastor. You weren't meant to carry this alone. Get help for your body. Nutrition, sleep, and even medication can support your healing, just like a cast supports a broken bone. And be kind to yourself. You don't need to earn a rest. You don't have to feel okay to be loved. You don't have to earn love. And cling to hope, tiny, honest hope, even if it's just, I made through today. That counts. That matters. And that's actually the only we can do. So if you're depressed, you're not weak. You're not hopeless. You are someone who is navigating the hardest kind of pain. Invisible to others maybe, but very real to you. And God sees you there. He's not disappointed in you. He's near to you. He loves you. And He's healing. Even if it takes time, it is still possible. Even the darkness will not be dark to you. Psalm 139, verse 12. So you are not alone, ever. And you are not forgotten. And your life still holds beauty and purpose, even when you're depressed. Because the purpose is God-given. Thank you for being part of this journey today. And if this message spoke to you, if you found hope or healing in it, please subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who needs this kind of encouragement. It's a very simple way to support this channel, and little by little it helps me continue creating content that brings faith, psychology and dignity together. God bless you. See you on next video.